So today we are finally starting to wrap up our World War II unit, and we are going to start with looking at victory in Europe, and we're going to quickly highlight how that was achieved, and then we're going to look at a leadership change in the United States, and then you'll have an independent assignment. So we're still looking kind of like at military strategies the United States pursued to defeat the Axis powers. So we had talked about with D-Day that that was fought between June of 1944 and in August of 1944, Paris had finally been liberated of German forces. With that done, by December of 1944, the Allied forces were able to cross through France and finally get into Germany to bring the fight to Germany. And in Belgium, another country that Germany had conquered early on in the war. So Germany decided that they would strike back in Belgium. This would be their final attempt to try to gain back some of the land they had lost. They chose Belgium because the American front line was really the weakest there. And when the Allied forces went into Germany, there was heavy resistance. So this was not like an easy win. They had been fighting really hard against the German troops. So the Germans did have some success, but by mid-January of 1945, Germany completely withdrew from Belgium. On the other side, on the Eastern Front, by April of 1945, the Soviet Union had fought and pushed Germans out of their country, and now had begun pushing them through Poland, which was another country that was invaded early in 1939. So once they were able to push Germany out of Poland, they were able to enter Germany themselves. So Hitler, on April 30th, 1945, he was in his bunker in Berlin, and he knew the Soviet troops were only a half a mile away. And if they found him, that he would probably be killed anyway for his war crimes. So he killed himself. And after that, German troops started surrendering all over. And by May 8th, 1945, the war in Europe officially ends. Now, the United States had a pretty new president at the time. So prior to this, we had Franklin Roosevelt, who was the president from 1933 to 1945. He won an unprecedented 4 terms. No one had ever been elected for 4 terms before, and no one ever will again, because now we have a constitutional law that prohibits this from happening. He only served 12 years, because at the beginning of his 4th term, he died. And this was on April 12th, 1945, due to a cerebral hemorrhage where he ruptured blood vessels, caused bleeding in his brain. And so while he never did see the end of World War II, he was the president for the bulk of the fighting. His vice president, and he's who is pictured here, Harry Truman, becomes the 33rd president of the United States. So what you are going to do today is you're going to read this primary source, and it is a speech given by Harry Truman on VE Day, so Victory in Europe Day. And it's important to note here that we are celebrating victory in Europe on May 8th with the rest of Europe, and the United States is very excited for this. But the fight is not over for us, as we are still fighting the Japanese in the Pacific. And in his speech, Truman is going to talk about that. He's going to talk about, yes, we have done all these good things in Germany, but we cannot forget that there is still an enemy there for us. So after reading this document, you will answer the 8 questions about only this document. All right, if you have any questions, please let me know.